Part 13. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 121. Chapter 121 There must be a road before the car reaches the mountain. The village chief did not dare to let the villagers continue to talk like this, for fear of weakening his temper, so he shouted. Stop guessing. There must be a road before the car reaches the mountain. As long as we don't take the wrong road, we will reach the Jinsha River when we leave the mountain. Then it will be safe to cross the river. No matter how powerful the barbarians are, they can still keep an eye on us and hunt them down. We don't have money, so don't take yourself too seriously. Everyone was shouted at a few words, and not only did they not get angry, but they felt relieved. The same is true. They are not noble or rich people. There is no reason for the barbarians to bite them. As long as they are careful, there should be no big problems. So, everyone soon threw this worry into anger. Of course, it's also because the pork is stewed. Pork stewed with dried vegetables and mushrooms was served in a big bowl each person. They drank the soup and ate the meat. Even though the cold wind had cooled down a bit, everyone was sweating profusely. From time to time, a few words, noisy in the mountains. The women specially made a small stove for the little ones, chopped the cooked pork and soaked mushrooms, and only added a small handful of rice grains, making them soft, glutinous, and fragrant. The little ones couldn't even lift their heads after eating. However, Jiyan disliked the smell of wild boar meat and only ate half of the bowl. Tao Hongying took the time to knead a small piece of dough, took the broth and other items and went to the small cave. She quickly rolled out the noodles and made sick rice for Mrs. Kui. Jiyan is wearing a red coat and trousers and a rabbit skin hat. He is not messy like ordinary farm children. Instead, he is white, fat, clean, and extremely cute. She ran to the bed and looked at Mrs. Kui with big eyes, saying nothing and not being naughty. Mrs. Kui's cough became lighter, but she still felt uncomfortable. When she opened her eyes and saw such a fat baby, she couldn't help but laugh. Whose child are you from? Jiyan pointed to Tao Hongying, who was busy at the door, and responded softly, she's from my mother's family. Such a milky voice instantly made Mrs. Kui's heart soften. She habitually wanted to give a greeting gift, but when she started to do so, she realized that there was nothing around her. As a result, her face became a little more lonely. She just touched Jiyan's face and whispered. Little girl, you are so cute, grow up well and grow into a beautiful girl. Jiyan could see the tenderness and loneliness in her eyes, and felt a little distressed, so he stretched out his little hand and gave her a small thing. Tao Hongying looked up and saw her daughter running inside. She was afraid that she would be naughty, so she hurriedly shouted. Fu Niu, come here quickly, don't disturb madam's rest. Seeing the good news running out, she told sister-in-law Qian. After another cup of tea, the noodles will be cooked and can be served to my wife. After eating the noodles, you can take the medicine. Dr. Zhang said that this medicine will damage the spleen and stomach, so it should not be taken on an empty stomach. Sister-in-law Qian quickly nodded and thanked her. Tao Hongying smiled and waved her hand. I will ask the boy at home to bring you food later. You can take care of my wife first. As she spoke, she carried the good news and went down. Everyone is happy after eating a meal of pork. There is food and oil in their bellies, and they are in a good mood. Barbarians, in troubled times, let alone worry. The men chatted while the women hurriedly took a bite and cleaned up. After finishing their work, the sky was completely dark, the wind and snow were getting stronger and stronger, and everyone hurried back to the cave. Mr. Wen climbed up the small cave and saw Mrs. Kui sitting in a daze, so he asked. Junior sister, are you feeling uncomfortable? Mrs. Kui raised her head and responded with a rare smile. No, senior brother, I'm worried. I just ate noodles and drank medicine, and I'm much better now. Mr. Wen was happy to hear this and was extremely grateful to the Li family. Although we were given money, in this situation, food is more expensive than money and gold. We came over and had 2 meals, 1 meat porridge and 1 meat soup noodles. The Li family is really too generous. Mrs. Kui also nodded, raised the small piece of oil paper in her hand, and said with a smile, "Just now, the fat girl from the Li family gave me a piece of candy, which is very sweet." The youngest baby, Mr. Wen, was surprised and praised, "Family tradition is really important, a little baby is so loyal and generous." Mrs. Kui thought for a while and said, "Senior brother, let's stay here until spring and go on the road with these people. We have nothing to offer for the time being, but when the time comes, senior brother can say a few words to the village chief and the Li family. When we get to Jiangnan, we will be well rewarded." Mr. Wen nodded, "I think so too, but this winter, we will have to trouble the Li family even more." The taciturn sister-in-law Kyung suddenly interrupted, "I can go hunting and exchange food with the villagers. This is also a solution, but it is still not enough." Mr. Wen pondered for a moment, then comforted Mrs. Kui, "Junior sister, don't worry, just rest in peace and recuperate, leave the rest to me." Mrs. Kui could only nod. Her body really couldn't help much, or it would be better if she didn't cause any trouble. As soon as Mr. Wen got off the cave, he and his entourage went to the village chief's cave to stay overnight. He didn't know that in the cave next door, the Li family was already thinking about finding a job for him. "Mom, Mr. Wen is sensible and wise, and should be a good gentleman." Li Laosi spoke first. Li Laoer also smiled and echoed, "Yes, I also talked to Mr. Wen a few more times. It's rare that he doesn't have a weird temper. Although he didn't say it explicitly, he should have achieved fame." Jiaran's eyes lit up when he heard it and had some vague guesses. Mrs. Li felt sorry for her grandson and patted him on the shoulder, "Don't worry too much. I think this opportunity is rare at home, so I want Mr. Wen to teach you how to read. Otherwise, the winter is so long and it won't be wasted." Jiaran suppressed his excitement and nodded repeatedly, "Thank you, Grandma, I will study hard." "I hope you don't study hard. A good child is like an old man all day long, and he has to play when he has to. Do you understand?" "I got it, Grandma." Jiyan lay in her grandma's arms, listened to the family talk, yawned, and quickly fell asleep. The stove fire was dancing, and the orange-red light made the cave feel extraordinarily warm. Shanfeng outside the cave tried hard to rush in without showing off his power, but unfortunately he broke his head and failed. The stone wall that covers most of the cave entrance is covered with thick mud. Even the door for the family to move around is covered with 2 layers of straw curtains and an additional layer of linoleum. Outside the cave is the cold ice and snow, the hustle and bustle of troubled times, and perhaps countless despair and confusion. But at this moment, when the family is together, it seems like they are not afraid of anything. Especially Li Lao Er, Li Lao San and Li Lao Si, the 3 brothers discuss tomorrow to clean up all the blood-stained snow from the pig slaughter today and push it into the river to avoid being sniffed by wild beasts. The lessons learned by the wolves before were too profound, and we must not repeat the same mistakes. Li Lao San still needs to cut down 2 more trees and build a table and benches for the small cave. It's freezing and snowy, so Mr. Wen and his 4 servants may not be able to leave. After living like this for a few months, everything that needs to be purchased has to be purchased. After chatting for a while, the family carefully found their way to the bed and got dressed and fell asleep. It was too cold to get up early, so everyone had breakfast in their own caves to prepare for the sun to warm them up before going out for activities. Unexpectedly, as soon as the Li family put breakfast on the table, they heard someone shouting under the cave. "Sister-in-law, Hongying." Tao Hongying quickly hid her daughter's custard bowl, then lay down at the entrance of the cave to look at it. "Third aunt, you've had breakfast, come up and sit down for a while, how about a bite?" It turned out that Aunt Wu was down there, and her men were beside her. Both of them looked anxious, waving their hands and asking questions. Honging, look quickly, is my dog Shenzi sleeping with Jiaxi's family? Tao Honging quickly turned around and saw Jiaxi Jian sitting at the table eating sweet potatoes. There was no trace of Go Sheng. She responded, Auntie, Go Sheng didn't come and didn't sleep at my house. It's over. Aunt Wu San sat down on the ground and cried loudly. The dog is lost, the dog is lost. The additional update of book review 400 is here, and today's Huahua still provides the fourth update on time. Ahem, cough, cough, Huahua has been having trouble with 4 consecutive updates these days. Now the rules for adding updates have been adjusted. If there are 100 new comments, an update will be added. The next 4 updates for Li Huahua will be at 500 book reviews. Thank you for your hard work, move your fingers. Give Huahua 5-star praise. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 122. Chapter 122. A sharp arrow delivers a message. What? The child is lost. How can the child be lost? In each cave, the villagers heard the noise and climbed down quickly. The old people were counting them one by one, fearing that their children were also missing, and they were also looking for where Go Shenger was hiding. Aunt Wu San and her husband had a hard life. When they were young, they gave birth to 2 children without stopping. They only had 1 child after they were in their 30s. After the dog was born, another little girl was born, but she died at the age of 2. Go Shenger is a real only seedling, and he usually looks more important than his eyeballs. If it had been before, we wouldn't have discovered that the child was missing all night. After all, the cave was small, with only 2 families and 2 children. But last night we changed to a cave, and Go Shenger had been playing with a few half-year-old children again. When it was time to go to bed, the couple thought that Go Shenger was too crowded, so they went to sleep with their little friend. The only time they didn't take it seriously was that they didn't go to the caves and ask questions. I didn't want to. After dinner this morning, the 2 of them shouted a few words before the child came back. After all, no one's family has much food, so it's not easy for their children to live and eat at the same time. As a result, when I asked one cave, Go Shenger was not there, and when I asked another one, he was still not there. Go Shenger, where are you? Come out quickly, don't scare me. Aunt Wu San shouted until her voice became hoarse, her eyes were red, and she was almost going crazy. Uncle Wu also had a pale face, pricked his hands, and bumped around like a fly with his head covered. He wanted a son from everyone he met. The villagers quickly gathered together and looked at the village chief and Uncle Zhao. The village chief waved his pipe and pot and directly ordered everyone, spread out and search around. Even if you can't find the children, you still have to find something. Everyone's heart was frightened, and they all had a bad premonition. In such cold weather, no matter whether the child is dragged away by wild animals or trapped in a snow nest, the end will not be good. Except for the old people who were inconvenient to get in and out of the cave, there were also children from various families. Everyone spread out and shouted to look for him. Soon, a villager discovered a slingshot a dozen steps behind the shack. Aunt Wu Sanzu rushed forward, hugged the slingshot and started crying. This is a dog's leftover, a dog's leftover. He hugged it even when he was sleeping. Mother's dog's leftover, where have you been? If something happens to you, my mother won't be alive either. She was crying and was about to run to the nearby stone, but was quickly grabbed by the villagers. The village chief frowned and was about to speak when an arrow suddenly shot from the forest in front. Lu Biatu wanted to find out first, but his quick eyesight and hands quickly pulled the village chief away. Be careful. The village chief stumbled and fell, and the arrow flew past his shoulder and pierced directly into the back of second sister-in-law Sun. Second sister-in-law Sun was bending over to persuade third Aunt Wu, but she never imagined that there would be such a danger. She screamed in pain and lay straight on the ground. Go back, go back. Lu Biata roared, grabbed the village chief and Uncle Zhao next to him, and stepped back. The villagers also had their nests exploded, rolling and crawling back. Li Laozi and Ji Yi each took one of them and brought Uncle Wu and Aunt Wu back to the shack. Everyone was in shock and hid behind the shack, but there was no movement in the forest. Tao Hongying half-hugged Sun Erzao and whispered, "There is a note on the arrow." Everyone looked out and breathed a sigh of relief. The arrow was held in Tao Hongying's hand. It turned out that the arrow was inserted too shallowly, and it had already fallen off after just tossing it. Second sister-in-law Sun's cotton-padded jacket was soaked in blood, but not much. Li Laozi took the note and opened it. It was quite simple, with only 4 sentences. 30 miles northeast, 10 bags of grain, 100 silver, and a child at noon tomorrow. Go Sheng is kidnapped. Everyone was silent for a long time. They thought they were the only ones active in this deep mountain and old forest. I didn't expect that not only were there other people, but their children were kidnapped so easily. We're careless. We settled here and lived in a cave, thinking we didn't have to worry about anything. We didn't have anyone on duty during the day and night, so someone took advantage of us. The village chief looked bad and blamed himself very much. Uncle Zhao clenched his fists tightly and said, "I'm too proud." When Lu Biatu mentioned that this is a broad bean waste and it's the closest to the outside, I should have reminded everyone. Li Laozi also frowned and replied, "We have been out for so long in vain, but we didn't find anyone else around here." At this moment, second sister-in-law Sun was carried back to find Dr. Zhang to give her medicine. Aunt Wu San had no tears left to cry, and her heart was filled with despair. 10 bags of grain and 100 silver, my family doesn't have any. How can I save the leftover dog? Uncle Wu held his head and squatted on the ground, wishing he could hit him to death. It is a good thing that my son is still alive. It is better than freezing to death or being carried away by wild animals. But the whole village cannot come up with what the kidnappers want, so how can they save their son? The villagers are also talking a lot, and they are anxious to come up with ideas. If you don't have enough money, put rocks in the bag. If you don't have enough food, put hay in it. Can you deceive these bandits and exchange the leftover dogs first? You are blind to think of bandits, they will definitely inspect the goods. Stop arguing, Li Laoer interrupted everyone loudly, and then said, "Listen to me and explain it from beginning to end, and then we can decide how to save it." He took a deep breath and continued, "First of all, these people should know that there are people here and come to check. Maybe they saw that we were killing pigs for stew, and there were many people, so they didn't dare to show their heads. If my guess is correct, I guess the dog the rest was to pee or pick up the slingshot, and then ran to the outside and was grabbed by this person. It's possible. It was too busy yesterday. We were all down there, and we also had hatchets and the like. If there weren't many people coming, we wouldn't dare to do anything." The village chief nodded, and the others also thought it made sense. Li Laoer put his hands behind his back and said, "After they returned, maybe they heard from Go Sheng that we were just people fleeing famine, so they didn't want to waste more time and sent a letter asking us to deliver the things they might leave us all behind to kill us, and then come back to rob us completely. If we don't, then they have nothing to gain." Just seeing that they had just shot arrows and did not avoid the crowd at all, it can be seen that these people are not ordinary people or soldiers who also fled into the mountains to hide. They should be ruthless bandits, the kind with countless blood on their hands, who do not care about human life. Something happened. The more people listened, the more their hearts sank. They thought it was extremely safe here, but they never expected that there was a man-eating tiger sleeping next to the bed. They have been neighbors with such ferocious bandits. Uncle Zhao took a deep breath and said, "If the second brother is right, then we have no way out and can only be prepared to fight desperately. It's not just for Gosheng. If these bandits are not eliminated, we will always be their danger. Yes, and we have to do it quickly, Lu Biatu also said. They don't notice us who are fleeing the famine. They think that we will tremble in fear and collect food and money. If this happens, we will follow. If you get behind the person who sent the letter and reach their cottage, you can catch them off guard. At least you have a chance to secretly rescue Gosheng first. Then let's go, the sooner the better, Li Laosi suggested. Prepare money and food, and pretend to be fake if you are discovered. You can always deceive for a while. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 123. Chapter 123. Save the children and kill the bandits. The village chief looked at all the villagers, exhaled a long breath, and said loudly, "There will definitely be times when you go out this time and you will be desperate. If any of you wants to follow, you must have thought carefully about it. If you are afraid of death and don't want to go, no one will complain. You, as long as you go there, you must obey the order. If you are too timid to swing the knife and harm your brother, don't blame everyone for looking down on you." A bachelor stepped forward and shouted, "Village chief, count me as one. I'm just an old man. Even if I die, I'm not afraid of dragging down others. I grew up watching Gosheng. These bandits are so wicked. Nothing can touch our children. Yes, don't touch the children. These people must die, count me among them. I have killed all the wild wolves. Are there still a few bandits left? Let's eliminate harm for the people. Yes, eliminate harm for the people. From now on I will be bragging when I go out who can kill wolves and bandits better than me." I have to say that on the way into the mountains, the young men in the village have been tempered by hardships and become more ferocious, and they no longer look honest and cowardly. In the blink of an eye, all the young men stood up, and no one was afraid of death and retreated. The village chief, Uncle Zhao and others were extremely happy, and Aunt Wu and Uncle Wu even cried and kowtowed. "We kowtow to everyone, Wu Wu, thank you everyone for saving Gosheng. When Gosheng grows up, let Gosheng take care of everyone in his old age." The bachelor picked up the two of them and responded nonchalantly, "They are all his own children. How could he not rescue them? When Gosheng grows up and becomes successful, just buy us a few more jars of wine to drink." The village chief discussed a few words with Uncle Zhao, Li Laosi, and Lu Biao, and then began to assign tasks. Prepare sacks stuffed with hay to pretend to be grain. But the silver is best to be real. It can be less than 100 taels. You can use more copper coins to increase the weight and make a lot of appearances. Be prepared to be discovered by bandits and lose the opportunity. When paying in this way, you can also take advantage of the bandits to check the money, catch the bandits off guard, and gain an advantage for the villagers. Everyone brings hatchets, bows and arrows, thicker armor, and 3 days' worth of dry food. Each family rummaged through all the white clothes or sheets and distributed them to help everyone hide their whereabouts. As orders were passed down one by one, the entire camp and all the caves became busy. There was a piece of ivory white material in the package of the Li family, and there were more than a dozen sorghum flour pancakes for lunch, all of which were taken by Tao Hongying. Mrs. Li took out the pocket containing money at home. Jiyan ran over and hugged her grandma's knee. She was also thinking about Gosheng, wiping his nose and always following Ngxi to tease her. Old Mrs. Li quickly took out the silver coin given by Mr. Wen, added a few extra pieces of broken silver and a large handful of copper coins, collecting more than 10 taels, and then stuffed the rest of the silver back. She whispered as she carried her granddaughter down the vine ladder. "Fu Niu, We don't feel bad about money. Every family in the village doesn't have much money, so I'm afraid they won't be able to raise much. Grandma took a little more, but our family will always have a chance to earn it back in the future. Poor Gosheng is only 8 years old. He must be rescued, otherwise his parents will not survive. Actually, she felt distressed. It was not easy for her family to save some money, so just taking it out like this felt like digging out her heart. But things are prioritized, and in order to save people, we can't be stingy at this time. Think about it, if Jia and Jiaxi was arrested today, the people in the village would definitely do their best to help. Every family thought as Mrs. Li thought. While the men were stuffing hay into their bags, the women took out their money and put it on the table. There were broken pieces of silver and copper coins. Sister-in-law Sun even brought over the 5 taels of silver that Mr. Wen had given her earlier even with her injuries. Aunt Wu San couldn't bear to cry anymore. This was the foundation of every family, and she had to sacrifice it for her son at this time. Mr. Wen also sent more than 20 taels of silver. We only have this money, so we hope it can be of help. Speaking of which, those bandits may have followed us, and we have caused trouble for everyone. The village chief quickly waved his hand. Mr. Wen, don't say that. These bandits are too close to us. Even if they didn't follow you here yesterday, they will always come back in the future. If you can hide from the 1st grade of junior high school, you can't hide from the 15th grade. Everyone is still unprepared, I don't blame you. The villagers all nodded, regretting their lack of vigilance before. But there is no use regretting, we can only try our best to make up for it. Li Laosi and Lu Biao shook their money bags, and when they saw the difference in weight, they put them away. Everyone checked their knives, bows and arrows, dry food and fire bags, and then set off. At this time, Dr. Zhang came over, followed by sister-in-law Qian. Dr. Zhang took out a small medicine bottle and said, "Here are some poisons that I kept for self-defense. After you pass by, if you can find an opportunity, pour it into the water and keep it for the bandits to drink. They will be completely dead in half a quarter of an hour." Everyone gasped and subconsciously thought about whether they had offended this old man. There is no separation between medicine and poison. Whoever makes the old man unhappy doesn't even know how he died. Physician Zhang noticed everyone's expressions, raised his chin proudly, and snorted arrogantly. On the other hand, sister-in-law Qian, who was on the side, took the medicine bottle, stuffed it into her arms, and said, "I know how to do light martial arts. Madam asked me to go with you to save people." Both Li Laosi and Lu Biao refused. Poisonous poison and a master joined them, and they were more confident about this trip. Jiyan lay on grandma's back and shouted softly, "Daddy, Daddy." When Li Laosi heard this, he stepped forward and pulled his daughter's hat. "Don't worry, Dad will be back soon." Jiyan is very worried. The loneliness in her previous life made her particularly cherish the family affection she got again. She wishes she could be like a hen and protect the whole family like chickens. She cannot be in any danger or suffer in the least. It's a pity that the world does not allow her to get what she wants. "Dad, come back soon." "Okay, listen to grandma at home." Li Laosi touched his daughter's face. Mrs. Li thought about how she was worried about eating alone every day at home, so she talked a little more. "Fourth, if everything goes well and Gosheng is rescued and everyone is safe, let's see if we can grab some food. The food we brought home is almost enough. Those japonica rice noodles prepared for Funiu, it's also bottomed out. If I cook for Mrs. Kui tomorrow, I can only eat sorghum noodles." These words reminded not only Li Laosi, but the village chief and Uncle Zhao also opened their eyes. The village chief immediately responded, "Yeah, I forgot about it. Our family doesn't have much food, but thanks to your family's support on the road, everyone has to pick mountain products to persevere. But in the final analysis, No matter how hard Laosi and Ji carry it, they still can't carry a few bags of food. Your family will definitely run out of food. I was still thinking of settling down for a few days and letting everyone go hunting more, but this happened. Uncle Zhao also nodded. All the children and sick people in Fu Niu's family are eating the fine grains. I can really get some fine grains this time, so I can give Fu Niu some more. Everyone was a little excited when they heard this. A man laughed and said, "We originally rescued people, but now we seem to be going to fight against the bandits." Everyone also laughed, and the tense atmosphere was much less tense for the moment. Li Laosi was afraid of wasting the opportunity, so he nodded with the village chief, Uncle Zhao, and others, and then shouted to everyone. "Go out, save the children, and grab food. Let's go, let's go." Everyone waved their sharp hatchets and dived into the forest. The village chief was worried that the bandits would move the tiger away from the mountain, leaving 7 or 8 people behind. So, including Uncle Wu, there were a total of 20 young people in the village, plus a sister-in-law Qian. Seeing them disappear without a trace, the village chief took a deep breath and loudly ordered the people who stayed behind. "Hurry up and get water and firewood, and then go into the cave. No one is allowed to come down until the 4th child and the others come back. No one can leave the cave entrance. I have guarded it day and night. Do you understand?" "I understand," the old man, woman, and children all responded and then got busy. "Carry water and firewood, and prepare sticks and sickles to put at the entrance of the cave." The pyre that was once considered convenient for getting firewood has now become a hidden danger for people to easily crawl into the cave entrance. The women pulled and pulled the pyre until it fell down. Sister-in-law Qian followed the team to rescue people, but only the sick Mrs. Kui was left in the small cave. Aunt Li didn't wait for Mr. Wen to speak, and called Tao Hongying to come over and help. Tao Hongying hesitated and only scooped out 2 ladles of sorghum noodles, but took some more mountain products. Mrs. Li hugged her granddaughter and felt guilty when she looked at her almost empty grain jar. She is happy that her granddaughter is very capable, but she is more afraid. There is no unreasonable blessing in the world. If the family keeps enjoying the blessings with the granddaughter, will it shorten the granddaughter's life? Along the way, she never declined to help the people in the village. She also urged the Li family to do more than they could bear. The reason is nothing more than wanting to accumulate more virtue. Save one more life, do one more good deed, will your granddaughter's blessings be compensated? She really wanted to ask the gods for help, but unfortunately she couldn't find the place, so she had to fumble around. "Hongying, there is no one around Mrs. Kui, please remember to take care of her more." "I know, mother, it's up to you and 3rd sister-in-law at home," Tao Hongying responded and was about to leave, but Jiyan asked her eldest brother to follow her. As expected, Mr. Wen was worried, and with the Li family as his companions, there was no need to avoid suspicion, so he took Wen Hai and stayed in the small cave. Having been busy all morning, it was already noon, and Tao Hongying was busy cooking. Jiaran sat at the stove, helping to light the fire and practicing left-hand calligraphy on the stone slab. Sure enough, Mr. Wen noticed it quickly. He sat aside and looked at it for a long time, then asked, "How did you practice left-hand calligraphy?" "Sir, it's because my right hand is inconvenient," Jiaran responded respectfully, and then stretched out his right hand hidden in his sleeve. There is no doubt about the medical skills of divine Dr. Zhang. Although Jiaran's right hand was mutilated, it was treated very well and has now been completely healed. But because are missing, it is still a little ugly. The remaining 3 fingers can still move, but they are not as flexible as before. Tao Hongying felt sorry for her nephew and wanted to leave a good impression on Mr. Wen, so she helped him out. "We encountered a pack of wolves in the forest earlier. In order to save his brother, this child blocked the wolf's mouth with his hand." Mr. Wen nodded and looked at Jiaran with a bit of appreciation and pity in his eyes. The left-hand character will not delay the scientific examination. I have practiced it for several years and can teach you some skills. Jian, who was squatting aside, finally opened his mouth and smiled. Her eldest brother's injured hand has always been a concern for her, and now it has attracted Mr. Wen's attention. In the future, she will find an opportunity to make gloves for her eldest brother, which can always be more beautiful. For example, deer skin is very close to the skin color. Not to mention that Good News was thinking about this, Li Laozi and others went all the way to the northeast over the mountains and ridges. Halfway through, they actually found 2 lines of footprints left by the bandits. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 124. Chapter 124. To cut the weeds, we need to get rid of the roots. Obviously, only 2 bandits came over in the morning to deliver letters of blackmail, and they really didn't take the villagers seriously. Because the footprints were left so wide on the snow without any cover. Li Laozi and others were really happy to see them. They chased after them at this time, which was definitely unexpected by the bandit. They were much more sure of successfully rescuing the child. The crowd chased him all the way over the mountains, and they had to be careful that the bandits were slow and the 2 parties collided. Walking and stopping like this, there is a lot of snow in the mountains, making it difficult to walk. By the time everyone saw the lights from a distance, it was already getting dark. Li Laozi discussed with Lu Biatu and others, and Lu Biatu took the people to hide. Li Laozi and sister-in-law Qian went in to inquire about the situation, and it was best to find where the child was hiding. Everyone endured their frenzied heartbeats, took out the sheets and quilts they had brought, and just lay down on the spot, completely blending in with the color of the snow. Not to mention in the dark, even in the daytime you have to get closer to see clearly. Sister-in-law Qian and Mr. Li groped near the light one after another. As a result, just when they were about to leave the forest, they were frightened to death. It turned out that there were several dark things hanging on the tree. They thought they were broken branches. But when I got closer, I realized that it was several people. People who were stripped naked and hung on a tree to freeze to death. Li Laozi cursed in a low voice and tightened his grip on the long knife in his hand. These bandits were too vicious, and they probably wouldn't be able to escape today's desperate battle. Sister-in-law Qian is a woman after all. Although she knows some kung fu, her face turned pale with fear. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the seriousness and caution in each other's eyes, and then continued to touch forward. It is said to be a mountain village, but in fact the place where the bandits settled is just a small courtyard. I don't know if the people who lived there were mountain residents or wealthy people's villas. The small courtyard is square, with 3 main rooms and 3 west wing rooms. There is also a fire in the side room, which seems to be a place for cooking. At the entrance of the courtyard, a bonfire was lit, and 2 bandits were warming themselves and talking. There was no one on guard duty around the courtyard walls. Sister-in-law Qian made a gesture and quietly climbed over the wall and went in. Li Laozi quietly approached the gate. 2 bandits were talking dirty words. One of them probably couldn't stand the cold, so he said hello. I'll go in and see the excitement, and you'll be there for a while, and then I'll come out and replace you. The remaining one was a little unhappy. No, the boss will be unhappy when he comes out. Maybe those mud-legged people will come. What the heck, I'm here to deliver the letter today. Don't you know that those mud-legged idiots lost their children and cried like dead mothers? They were in a mess. Even if we gave them 10,000 courages, we wouldn't dare to come and make trouble. We just wait until you get the money tomorrow. Besides, the boss is having a good time, so what are you afraid of if you can't get out of bed for half the night? The bandit who spoke was nonchalant and turned around and went in, making the remaining bandits stare. In the end, he didn't stop him. He stood up and untied his pants to find a leeward place to urinate. As a result, before the urine was released, his mouth was covered and a cold hatchet was placed on his neck. "Shut up, if you dare to speak out, I will wipe your neck." The bandit was about to struggle subconsciously, but Li Laosi raised his knee and hit the crook of his hind leg, causing him to kneel on the stone, trembling in pain. "Let me ask you an answer. If you dare to lie or raise your voice, I will send you to see the Lord of Hell immediately." Li Laosi pressed the hatchet, and the bandit's neck was cut, and blood started to flow. The bandit shivered more and nodded repeatedly. "How many of you are there in total? Where is the child who was kidnapped yesterday?" 30, there are 30 of us. Yesterday the child was stuffed into the cellar." The bandit said stammeringly, for fear that Li Laosi wouldn't believe it. He also pointed to the wall next to him. "The cellar is in the corner of the courtyard, and a big stone is pressed against the entrance of the cellar." Li Laosi asked again, "Where are you from? Do you have any accomplices?" "No," the bandit hesitated, and Li Laosi bled him again. He quickly recruited everyone. "In the summer, there was a severe drought in the south, so we came here to get some money when life was not easy. Later, when the barbarians came, the emperor and the rich people all ran south, so we blocked the official road to grab the fat sheep. Just asking if you have any accomplices." "No, no more, our family members are all in the south, and we don't know anyone here." Li Laosi breathed a sigh of relief, and when he was wondering whether to kill the bandit to silence him, sister-in-law Qian had already jumped out of the wall. She lowered her voice and said, "The poison has been put in, but only the gamblers in the west wing can get it. There are 7 or 8 more in the main room. We really can't take care of it. We need to be careful when we do it later." Li Laosi did not wait for his response, and the bandit suddenly made a lot of money beside him, and he shouted with his neck. He cut it smoothly, and the bandit's neck was wiped. He grunted in his throat and fell down softly. Li Laosi endured the nausea caused by the hot blood soaking his shoulders, pulled him and threw him a few steps away. Then he signaled sister-in-law Qian to stay, then turned around and went back to where everyone was hiding. "Sister-in-law Qian has already administered the medicine, and I asked for information. There are 30 bandits in total. Most of them are gambling in the west wing, and the other half are in the main room. The child is in the cellar on the right side of the courtyard, and the door of the cellar is pressed stone. After entering in a while, I will go to rescue the children first. Remember not to hold back. I will kill them all. They have no accomplices outside. We must eradicate it." Everyone listened carefully and nodded heavily. Li Laosi was afraid that they would start fighting soon, but he still acted softly and pointed to a tree by the forest and said, "There are people hanging to death by the bandits who froze to death. They were all robbed from the official road. These bandits are too vicious. Either they will die today or we will die. Otherwise, if one of them is allowed to escape, they will probably find someone to take revenge." Everyone turned pale and shouted, "Don't worry, we will definitely kill him." Thinking that the time was almost up, Li Laosi and Lu Biatu led everyone forward to touch. Zhang Shenai is first class in curing diseases, and he is also first class in the efficacy of poisons. Sister-in-law Qian was anxious when she heard that there was no movement in the west wing. When she saw everyone coming, she went into the courtyard first. Li Laosi then ran directly to the corner. Sure enough, there was a big stone pressed against the corner of the wall. It would have taken 3 people to move it away, but it was easy for him. He could do it with just 2 arms. He opened the wooden board and jumped directly without fear. It was pitch dark in the cellar and there was no sound at all. His heart tightened and he knocked on a fire stick to light up a section of the pine tree, barely illuminating the surroundings. He only glanced at it and couldn't help but take a breath of air. There were actually 5 children crammed into the cellar that was only 8 or 9 steps square, and the dog was leaning against the corner. He strode forward and picked up Gosheng. Gosheng's whole body was boiling hot, and he didn't know who was burning. He ran to the other children again, but his expression changed. In the yard, Lu Biatu heard that there was no movement in the west wing, and then gently opened the door. There were 3 or 4 oil lamps lit in the room, and there was a crackling stove, so it was not difficult to see clearly. There was a square table in the middle of the room, with 4 people sitting at the table, 7 or 8 people lying on the ground, and 7 or 8 people on the kong. They were all bleeding from their mouths and noses, and they were dead and could no longer die. Some people may have noticed something was wrong when they were poisoned, and wanted to open the door, but their hands were still on the threshold. Lu Biatu breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to go in to finish the attack, he heard the door of the main house being pushed open with a bang. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 125. Chapter 125. What a sin! A big man was wearing his trousers, cursing and shouting, 3 sons, 6 sons, why are there no movement? Are they all asleep? Hurry up and give the boss some time. Halfway through his words, he realized that the courtyard was full of strangers. He rushed back with a cry, copycat, the plate is broken. Lu Biatu also shouted, leave 2 men to go to the west room to repair the wounds, and the rest will follow me to kill them. When we meet on a narrow road, the brave one wins. Originally, I wanted to completely eliminate the hidden dangers in the west wing, and then kill the main house by surprise. How could I expect to be exposed so soon? I can only do my best at this time. Lu Biatu was the first to rush forward. Just as the people in the room rushed out, the long knives on both sides hit one spot. The sword in Lu Biatu's hand is the one that Ji Yin took out from the space. In terms of quality, it is not generally good. The hatchet of the bandit on the opposite side broke with a click. Lu Biatu's blade used the force to slash forward, cutting off half of the bandit's neck. Lu Biatu stepped aside and took advantage of the chaos to glance around the room. He saw that there were indeed only 8 or 9 bandits, and he felt confident. There are only 8 or 9 of them, let's kill them 2 against each other. Just then, Li Laozi also jumped out of the cellar, threw the leftovers directly to Uncle Wu, and rushed over in stride. Kill them, these are damned beasts. Ji Yi and Lu Yang were really unafraid of tigers, so they kicked open the window and jumped in. The melee is completely open. Lu Biatu and Li Laozi kept luring people out of the house, leaving the villagers to beat them, and then went in to fight. After doing this twice, there were only 3 people left in the room, and they were also the 3 most ferocious ones. 2 of them were not even wearing clothes, but the long knives in their hands danced impenetrably, and they almost cut Ji Yi and Lu Yang several times. Lu Biatu and Li Laozi were anxious. They fought hard to get injured, and finally cut down one of them. The remaining 2 had red eyes, waving their knives and yelling, damn mudlegs, you are so brave after eating the heart of a bear, you dare to break the plate. I will send you all to see the king of hell today. Li Laozi was forced to take a few steps back. Using his strength, he pulled the table with one hand and smashed it over. The bandit was startled, and subconsciously raised his hand to block it. Lu Yang rushed over, pierced the bandit's stomach with a knife, and then slashed out horizontally, directly disemboweling the bandit. But the knife in the hand of another bandit was also raised, and he was about to stab Lu Yang to death. The 2 bandits were leaning against the wall at a favorable position, and it was too late for Lu Biatu and Li Laozi to save them. I didn't want my family to get sick, and pulled Lu Yang's legs and dragged him out. The bandit's long knife plunged into the ground, and when he was about to pull it out, Uncle Wu appeared out of nowhere, jumped out of the window, rode directly beside the bandit, and bit the bandit's wrist. Ear. The bandit screamed in pain and tried to throw Sansu Wu away. But Sanshu hugged him tightly, neither letting go nor letting go. Li Laosi swooped down and swept the hatchet across, directly cutting off the bandit's legs. The bandit fell to the ground, and Lu Biao stabbed him in the stomach. The bandit struggled twice, stared hard, and finally lost his breath. Li Laosi wanted to talk about Uncle Wu, but he didn't know that the bandit was dead, and he was whimpering like a beast. "I'll bite you to death, let you catch my son, bite you to death, bite you to death." Lu Biao took a few breaths from exhaustion, stepped forward and knocked Sanshu Wu unconscious with a knife, then picked him up and threw him to Ji Yi. In the yard, only one of the 5 or 6 bandits was left, and now he was waving his long knife almost like a maniac. The villagers gathered around, holding hatchets, and would not let him go unless they came forward. Lu Biao and Li Laosi were still in the room, and sister-in-law Qian was on the side giving orders. "Everyone doesn't need to step forward, just surround him and wear him to death. As long as he rushes over, let's chop him together." The villagers' eyes were red from the killing, and almost all of them were covered in paint. There was no blood on the blades of the swords. They were originally farmers and had never learned martial arts. Usually, they would only get blood if they killed a chicken. But this time, they came with hatred for the sake of their children and were determined to fight tooth and nail. But their skills were still inferior to others. 3 of them faced off against one bandit, and they barely managed to win. At this time, Lu Biao and Lu Laosi had already cut off the gangsters in the room. When they came out, they looked at each other and shouted loudly, "All the bandits are dead, only this one is left, hack them to death." The villagers felt as if they had been given a shot of blood after hearing this, but the bandit collapsed and wiped his neck without waiting for anyone to come forward. There was a pop, warm blood spurted out, and then the body fell to the ground. No one said anything in the yard for a long time, but Ji Yi shouted in the main room, "Fourth uncle, there are several women in the house." Everyone was startled, and Li Laosi and Lu Biao turned around and rushed in. Ji Yi and Lu Yang guarded the door of the east room. Lu Biao took one look at them and dragged them out. Just as sister-in-law Qian came in, Lu Biao said, "Go in and take a look." It seems that the woman was snatched back by the bandits. She is a little embarrassed. Sister-in-law Qian was stunned for a moment, and then entered the house with an ugly face. Everyone guessed what was going on and stepped back down the steps one after another. Sure enough, soon there was a cry of pain in the room, which was heartbreaking and made everyone feel sad. Sister-in-law Qian then came out and asked Li Laosi, "Are there any children in the cellar who have not been rescued?" Several women in the house said that they were kidnapped by bandits, and the men hanging on the trees should be their men. "Their children are locked up in the cellar, and it's for the sake of my children that I endure the humiliation." As he was talking, several women in the room had barely dressed and rushed out. They couldn't even see the faces of everyone clearly, so they started to kowtow, "Please help our benefactors to save our children. It's in the cellar. We are willing to serve you. We are willing to." Everyone saw that their hair was disheveled and their clothes were torn, barely covering any skin. They couldn't bear to look at them anymore and turned their heads away. Li Laosi looked complicated. After thinking about it, he took Lu Biao down to the cellar. Soon, the 2 of them carried 2 children each and placed them at the door of the house. The 4 children all had blue faces and their bodies were curled up, as hard as ice sculptures. Several women were stunned for a moment, then rushed forward like crazy, hugged the children and howled miserably. Brother Quan, look at Mom, Brother Quan, they promised Mom to give you food, they promised. Sister Hui, Mother, Sister Hui, open your eyes, Mother is here, Mother is here. Mother is hugging you, you are not cold, we are not cold. Children are the life of all parents. No one can bear the pain of losing a child. Several women held their cold children in their arms, crying almost to death and even coughing up blood. The villagers couldn't help wiping their tears secretly. Some even carried hatchets and stabbed the dead gangsters one by one. Sister-in-law Kyan gritted her teeth with hatred and made a creaking sound with the hatchet in her hand. Li Laosi sighed with red eyes and whispered, "When I just rescued the dog left, I found that these children were gone. I am afraid they have been frozen and hungry for several days." "What a sin," Lu Biatu quickly wiped the corners of his eyes and responded in a hoarse voice, "Clean up first and throw the corpses of these beasts into the cellar." The villagers couldn't bear to see such a tragedy in the world, so they hurriedly followed the work. When they were busy, they felt less uncomfortable. The corpses of the bandits were dragged one by one and thrown into the cellar. 30 people filled the cellar half full. Finally, after fastening the wooden lid, Li Laosi moved the big stone and pressed it firmly in the middle. Letting these beasts die here can be regarded as taking revenge for the dead children again. Everyone lowered their heads and felt heavy in their hearts. I don't know who suddenly said, "Hey, why is the door closed?" Everyone turned their heads and looked over. The door to the main room, which was originally wide open, had been closed at some point. The body of the child placed at the door has also disappeared. The book review is just one drop away from the 500 mark. Huahua will give you the 500 plus update first. Today there are still 4 updates. During the Qingming festival, Huahua is supported by the 5-star reviews from Beizai. Don't dislike Huahua's updates. There are a lot of updates at 8,000 words every day. Huahua is working very hard to add more updates to the treasures. The next 4th update will be on book review 600. 5-star praise for Huahua is not too much. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 126. Chapter 126. Human life is worth less than grass. No. Help! Li Laosi was the first to react and ran over in a few steps. He wanted to push the door open, but it was locked from the inside. He could only pat it hard. "People inside, open the door quickly." Unfortunately, no one answered. At this moment, Mrs. Kyan, Lu Biatu and others also rushed over. Li Laosi gritted his teeth, took a step back, and kicked the door open with a bang. Everyone looked up and gasped in fright. The bodies of 4 children were placed side by side on the ground, and the women were already hanging from the rafters. "Save people quickly." Li Laosi raised his foot and was about to go in, but was stopped by sister-in-law Kyan. "There's no need to save him, and he can't be saved." Li Laosi was stunned when he heard this, and Lu Biatu and the villagers were also anxious. "You haven't been saved yet, how do you know you can't be saved?" They also ignored sister-in-law Kyan, pulled the table and stepped on the stools, and quickly put the women down, and then, they all fell silent. The woman's body was almost completely cold, and Deluo Jinxian could not save her. Some villagers blamed themselves. "We just left some people to watch over it. Yeah, I just feel sad thinking about them, and they will feel better after a while. How can I think of?" Sister-in-law Kyan shook her head and said softly, "You can save them and persuade them once, but you can't persuade them and save them for the rest of your life. They are determined to die, and they can always find opportunities. It is better to live than to die. The bandits are all dead." Some villagers did not believe it, but sister-in-law Kyan went to the table, and sure enough, there were blood letters and tokens there. She picked it up, glanced at it briefly and said, "They are the family members of the Guo family of Teiwa Academy in Kyoto. Please let us bring the news of their deaths to the family." In a scholarly family like the Guo family, chastity is far more important than life. These days, This woman originally endured humiliation and lived an ignoble life just to survive for her children. Now that the children are dead and their virginity is gone, they have no reason to live. If everyone feels pity for them, please keep their affairs a secret. If anyone asks in the future, they will say that their family was murdered by bandits at the same time. Everyone felt sour and heavy after hearing this, and wished they could pull out the bandits and kill them 10,000 times. Sister-in-law Kyung asked Li Laosi and Lu Biatu to read the blood letter and tokens, and then put them in their arms. Our wives are old acquaintances with Mr. Guo's wife. Although we haven't seen each other for many years, if these things are given to our wives, they should be delivered to the Guo family. Don't worry, everyone will definitely not take credit for your efforts. Li Laosi quickly waved his hand. We didn't help much, and we didn't get much credit. But we did not notice these poor women under our noses, and let them commit suicide. I feel bad. Lu Biatu also nodded and sighed. Now that things have come to this, we can only help him bury him in peace. Sister-in-law Kyung said, look around to see if there is any luggage or women's clothes from the Guo family. I will help them sort them out and bury them in a dignified way. When someone comes to their house to pick up the bones in the future, it won't be too ugly. The woman is still attentive. Li Laosi and Lu Biatu could not imagine so much, but they were willing to give their full support. The villagers immediately dispersed and searched everywhere, and sure enough, they found several packages on the floor of the West house. Not only did he have clothes, but also some odds and ends, including a few bottles of pills. Sister-in-law Kyung briefly identified it and took a bottle to Uncle Wu. This should be for treating wind and cold. It's the same as what our wife took before. You can give the child one pill first. Uncle Wu quickly thanked him. Go Shenger had a cloth on his forehead and he had woken up. He cried hard when he saw his father, but the fever still didn't go away. This pill is so timely. Sister-in-law Kyung nodded, then took the dresses and helped the Guo girls put them on. She was the only woman, and no one else could help her, so she simply moved it onto a wooden box in the house and sent it outside, intending to temporarily use it as a coffin. In the middle of the work, a villager suddenly exclaimed, "Come on, there is food here, a lot of food." Everyone hurriedly gathered around. This was a wing room. The room was not big, but there were piles of things on the earthen bed. There were more than 20 bags in 3 layers of grain bags. One of the open openings was half eaten, with white japonica rice inside. There are 4 or 5 jars of vegetable oil, some salt and garlic, etc., and even a jar of candied apricots. It is obvious that these things must have been brought by the Guo family on the road, and they did not want to be robbed by these bandits. Great, great, we don't have to worry about going hungry during the winter. If I take this back, my family will probably go crazy with joy. Li Laosi and Lu Biatu looked at each other and had a perfect understanding. Let's bury the Guo family first, and then search the yard carefully. These things all belong to the Guo family. We have received their kindness, and we must do something to bring the things back with peace of mind. The villagers nodded one after another and quickly carried out all the boxes in the yard. There were 5 people in total, which was enough for the Guo family to live in. Li Laosi took people to carry back several men hanging in the woods and helped them put on their clothes. I don't know how many days these people had been frozen. The bodies were so hard that their hands and feet were severely damaged. It's freezing outside the house, so it's not easy to dig a hole. They all evacuated the things from the west room of the main house and dug up the house directly. Maybe good people are rewarded. When a floor tile near the corner was dug up, a jar was revealed, which was filled with silver. Everyone was shocked. It was obvious that this was the dirty silver hidden by the bandits. This jar of silver seemed to start a treasure hunt for everyone. For half the night, the graves of the Guo family were dug out, and 3 feet of ground was dug up in the entire small courtyard. It's a pity that there is nothing else except the jar of silver. Everyone was disappointed, but Lu Biatu shouted. What are you thinking? Are you too greedy? We came here to save the child. Now that the child has been saved, we have received so much food and a jar of silver. We are already very lucky. If something went wrong last night, we are all going to see the Lord of Hell now. When everyone heard this, they thought it was true and laughed guiltily. No one complained for a while, and they quickly helped to bury the Guo family. Since we don't know who is the same as who, and to avoid the embarrassment of burying the eldest brother and his younger siblings in the same box, the Guo family still buries men and women separately. 2 women per box, 2 men per box, and 4 children per box. Finally, the 5 boxes were put into the pit together. Sister-in-law Kyung found a blackened wooden stick, pulled out a piece of white cloth, and briefly recorded the characteristics of the Guo family members buried in each box, planning to hand them over to the Guo family in the future. Li Laozi picked up the axe, marked the box, and then jumped up. Everyone looked at the 12 members of the Guo family and felt uncomfortable in their hearts. Heaven and earth are unkind and regard all things as stupid dogs. In times of trouble, human life is no more fragile than the weeds on the roadside. Mr. and Mrs. Guo, we are also poor people fleeing famine. It is a tragedy to come here unexpectedly and catch up with your family. This is all we can do. I hope you are satisfied. I don't know if the grain and money belong to your family, so we will take them away. When we go out of the mountains and forests and arrive in the south of the Yangtze River, we will definitely find your family and explain this matter. Please wait quietly for your family to take you back. Li Laozi finished speaking seriously, and then led everyone to salute. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 127. Chapter 127, The treasure mountain is empty and cannot be used. The wooden box was closed, quickly covered with earth, and then covered with floor tiles again. If no one had checked carefully, they would probably not have found anything wrong with the basement of the house and would not have disturbed the peace of the Guo family. After being so busy, the sky has turned white, and the morning light has once again enveloped the earth. If the blood in the yard and house hadn't reminded everyone of the danger last night, they would have thought it was just a nightmare. Everyone was eager to return home, so they started searching everywhere without the instructions of Li Laozi and Lu Biatu. Everything that could be used was carried into the yard. Grain bags, vegetable oil, various sundries, even pots and pans, teapots and bowls, thick bedding, all gathered together in a pile. Everyone was happy but also worried about how to bring such things back. In the end, Lu Biatu came up with a good idea: remove the door leaves of each room, tie the ropes and make a sledge. Put the food first, stuff it with small things, if you can't hold it, throw away the pots, pans, etc. Come out. Everyone responded and quickly gathered together. Nearly 100 people, old and young, settled in the mountain stream. Except for people, they were lacking everything. So, Lu Biatu's words were clear, but everyone was acting against the will when it came to execution. Not to mention leaving the pots and pans behind, I even took the chopsticks with me. After finishing their busy work, the sun was almost over their heads. Everyone had a quick bite of dry food and was about to return. Lu Biatu was worried, fearing that someone would follow the traces and find the other side of the mountain stream, so he discussed it with Li Laozi. He will stay with Ji Yi and Lu Yang for 2 days to make sure that these bandits have no helpers or foreign aid, and then they will rush back to the mountain stream. Li Laozi also wants to stay. I'll be with you. I can help you if anything happens. But Lu Biatu refused. No, you still have to lead the way back. If you encounter a wild beast or the like on the road, without you to control the formation, the people in the village will be in a hurry. Besides, I took 2 boys to hide in secret. Even if there is a bandit when my accomplices come back, we won't show up. Looking at the weather, It's going to snow in the next few days. I'll go back before it starts snowing. By then, the traces will be covered with heavy snow, so there's no need to worry. Li Laozi could only nod his head and sighed, this place is too close to Guan Road. It's hard to make too much noise. Otherwise, it would be easier to burn the yard on fire. In this way, everyone quickly dragged a large amount of loot and plunged into the mountains and forests, rushing home excitedly. On the other side of the mountain stream, everyone was waiting nervously. Even the usually naughty little baby was much quieter and did not dare to make any noise. In the small cave, a half pot of hot water was boiling on the stove, which was just beginning to flood. The slate that Jiren uses every day has been set up. He is practicing calligraphy with a pen in his left hand. Mr. Wen stood aside, holding a branch in his hand and hitting Jiren's back and wrist from time to time. Keep your back straight and use your wrists, not your arms. You must rely on the strength of your wrists to drive the pen tip. Jiren's forehead was covered with a layer of fine beads of sweat. It was obvious that he was exhausted, but he continued to write without saying a word. Tao Hongying felt distressed when she saw it, but she didn't dare to say anything. She mixed some warm water and sent it to the inner room separated by a straw curtain. Mrs. Kui was walking slowly while holding Jiyan in her arms, and her eyes lit up when she saw the basin. She had been ill for several days. She could get out of bed, eat and drink, but she couldn't take a shower or wash her hair, which was too unbearable. Thank you, Hongying, I was just thinking about washing my hair. Tao Hongying smiled and said, you were sick a few days ago, so you couldn't wash your hair. It's easy for the wind and cold to come back again. It's warm in the cave today, so you can wash it. Mrs. Kui put down the good news, quickly took off her coat and let her hair loose. Tao Hongying patted her daughter and scolded her with a smile, lazy girl, you don't know that you are fat. You are always being held by others, and you don't want to walk more than one step. Mrs. Kui is cold on the outside and hot on the inside. She is a bit cold when getting along with others, but she has no defense against the little kid Jiyan. She feels a lot more relaxed in the past 2 days. It's better for a girl to be lazy, she will be lucky. Tao Hongying smiled helplessly and said nothing more. In the future, apart from her own family, there might be one more person protecting her daughter. Jiyan smiled and rolled into the bed, lying down obediently, watching her mother wash Mrs. Kui's hair, her mind wandering in space. The chickens, ducks, and geese in the small yard really don't eat food for free. They have been laying eggs very diligently recently and have accumulated a lot. But she had been warned by Grandma first, and now she was living in a small cave. She couldn't take it out, so she could only continue to save it. As for the little fat pigs that have grown to more than 100 kilograms, they are also humming happily. At least within half a year, they will not be in danger of their lives. Thinking of the half bowl of sorghum noodles and dried vegetable porridge that I drank in the morning, Jiyan became even more depressed. Seeing so many good things but not enough to eat, will she become the first heroine to starve to death while holding space? No, I still need to discuss it with Grandma and come up with a good solution. Unconsciously, she fell asleep. Tao Hongying and Mrs. Kui finished their work and turned around to see that Jiyan was already asleep and drooling. Her soft belly was rising and falling, which was particularly cute. Mrs. Kui quickly pulled the quilt to cover her. Tao Hongying poured water, and she sat by the stove to dry her hair. The cave was slightly dark, and the light from the stove fire was particularly warm. Mrs. Kui is combing her long black hair, and on one side is the gentle and elegant Mr. Wen. Occasionally, the two of them look at each other, as if they have a lot to say, but they can't say it, or they don't need to say it at all. This scene made Tao Hongying a little curious, but she was not a nosy person and did not disturb her. She put down the basin and went to the inner room to hold her daughter to sleep. Jiyan was drowsy and smelled her mother's scent. She leaned into her arms and slept even more soundly. Day after day, everyone had been in the cave for 4 days. The naughty children couldn't bear it anymore and lay down at the entrance of the cave, looking eagerly down, hoping to go down and run away. Even the adults were a little anxious. The space was small and there were so many people that it seemed hard to breathe. I was going crazy holding back the good news, and I was thinking about my father and brother, and I was looking sad all day long. Mrs. Kui found it funny. Such a small child always looks like an adult. She picked up a few stones in the corner and taught Ji-yin how to hit the bumper, which is to use small stones to throw big stones. If you hit the target, you can get the big stone back, and see who wins more in the end. If Ji-yin were really a 1-year-old child, he would definitely have a great time. But she is not, she is an old cucumber painted green, pretending to be young. Finally, I went from being bored as a baby to being able to walk and talk, but it turned out that I was stuck again. Kui Hongying grabbed a handful of dried vegetables and mushrooms, sat at the entrance of the cave, and carefully picked out the tiny grass clippings in the light outside, just to kill her boredom. Occasionally, she looked up and saw the slowly moving black line in the forest in the distance, which made her so excited that she almost plunged into the cave. There is someone in the forest. She was not sure whether it was one of her own family members, so she could only shout like this. In an instant, Wen Hai lifted up the straw curtain at the door, and Mr. Wen, Jiren, and even Mrs. Kui hugged Jiyan and squeezed over. When other caves heard the movement, they all looked out. Slowly, the group of black shadows came closer, and they became clearer. It's my family, I'm back, I'm finally back. Others were paying it forward. In the largest cave, she was the first to put down the rattan ladder, and Aunt Wu slipped down directly. When she fell, her sprained foot did not stop her from running wildly into the forest. Go Shen-er, go Shen-er. Everyone also jumped down, but the village chief was still cautious and shouted to each family, the elderly and children should stay in the cave first. Every family was very anxious, but they were still obedient. Only the young man and his wife who were left to look after the house rushed into the forest. Soon, Aunt Wu's heartbreaking cry could be heard in the wind, Goshani-er, my mother's dog Sunny-er. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 128. Chapter 128 Ups and Downs. Everyone was worried after hearing this. Was Go Sheng rescued, or was something wrong? Fortunately, some villagers came running back after a while, jumping and shouting. Village chief, Uncle Zhao, come down quickly, Go Sheng has been rescued, and everyone has brought back a lot of food. Uncle Zhao shouted anxiously, where are the people? Are the people in the village injured? The villagers quickly responded, no, Uncle Zhao. They are just minor injuries, and they look fine. Everyone could no longer hold back and started shouting and cheering. This time, the cave was completely empty, and everyone in the village, young and old, went down. Even Mrs. Kui lay on Wen Hai and got down the vine ladder. At this time, the team had already left the forest and arrived in front of the shack. Aunt Wu Sanzi hugged her son tightly and couldn't bear to let go for a moment. She cried and laughed and cried, like a lost treasure, wishing she could put her son in her eyes and never take it out again. The other women also wiped their tears and came forward to touch Go Shen'er's head. This boy has suffered a lot of misfortune, and now he is hiding in his mother's arms without saying a word. Send the child to the cave quickly to keep him warm and eat something good. After a few nights of solid sleep, he will definitely be fine. Yes, the boy is strong, he will be fine soon. Aunt Wu San responded repeatedly, hugged her son and was about to leave, but suddenly thought of something. She turned around and put her son on the ground. Then the two of them knelt down together and kowtowed to everyone. Wu, thank you everyone for your help, Go Shen'er, Please kowtow to your uncles. Your life and the lives of our whole family are all saved by everyone. Aunt Wusan was thinking about her son and her husband. She almost didn't eat or drink in the past few days. She had lost a whole circle of weight. Her eyes were black and blue, and she looked as haggard as she wanted. But because of her son beside her, the light of hope in her eyes made everyone tremble in their hearts. Luckily the child was found, otherwise the third aunt would never have survived. Thinking about the third uncle who bit off the bandit's ear alive, everyone felt more and more that this trip was worth it. Auntie, please get up quickly and find the child. Yes, let's run for our lives together on the road, and it's right to lend a hand to save the child. Yes, let's take care of Gosheng first, we still have a long time to live together. After finally persuading third aunt to leave, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and then they had time to look at what Li Laozi and the others had brought back. The simple sledge made of 8-door leaves was fully loaded with food, bedding, and supplies, which made everyone open their mouths in surprise. Did you really rob the bandits? With so many things, will the bandits come after me? Mrs. Lu searched for a long time but did not see her husband or son. Fortunately, Ji Yi was not there either. She had some vague guesses, otherwise she would really have gone crazy. At this time, she squeezed in and asked, Lao Si, where is my Lao Lu, and where are Lu Yang and Jia Yi? Li Laozi hurriedly responded, don't worry, sister-in-law, and everyone can rest assured too. We have to kill every one of those bandits. Brother Lu and the 2 boys are fine. Brother Lu is worried that the bandits have accomplices, so we should stay longer. I'll check the situation in 1 day and I'll be back by noon tomorrow at the latest. Everyone was even more surprised when they heard this. You are too powerful, you actually killed all the bandits. The village chief hurriedly called to the women, hurry up and light some fires and bring hot water. If anyone has finished cooking, we will also bring emergency supplies to give the 4th child and the others some food. Li Laozi and others did not refuse and entered the thatched shed. They were so tired that they sat on the wooden pillars and could not get up. There were a lot of things, and they were anxious to come back early, almost without stopping along the way. Dry food is almost eaten, and I always persisted in my heart. I feel so discouraged now that I really can't bear it anymore. Soon, a bonfire was lit, hot water and rice were served, and Li Laozi and others began to eat. Ji Yan finally found the opportunity and squeezed into his father's arms, reluctant to leave. I was worried for several days, but I finally hoped that my father would come back safely. Li Laozi put down his bowl and chopsticks after eating half full, and talked to everyone about this rescue of people and the suppression of bandits. From entering the mountain and touching the bandits' yard, to sister-in-law Qian poisoning, rescuing Gosheng, and surrounding and killing the 7 or 8 bandits, the story is clear and the process was full of ups and downs. Everyone gasped from time to time, clenched their fists, and had layers of cold sweat on their backs. At the end, Li Laozi sighed, I really want to thank Dr. Zhang and sister-in-law Qian this time. If we hadn't dealt with most of the bandits, we wouldn't have been able to rescue Gosheng at all. These bandits are too fierce and cruel. A family was robbed, the men and women were hung on trees and froze to death, and the children were left in the cellar to starve to death. They were simply worse than animals. What a sin, these beasts, why didn't God strike them to death with thunder? That's right, good people don't live long, and bad people live for thousands of years, it's really unreasonable. Everyone was saddened to hear this and started to curse. Li Laozi and a group of villagers also felt sad. They even concealed part of the truth. If everyone knew how tragically those women died, they would be even more unbearable. Uncle Village Chief, Uncle Zhao, we found a lot of food and supplies in the bandits' yard. We took back everything that was useful. Looking at these things, they should have been left by the family who was killed earlier. Look, let's give everyone a share. Li Laozi pointed at the pile of things, and the village chief immediately asked, "What happened to the people who were killed in that family? Did you help bury them?" Li Laosi nodded, "We found boxes to make coffins, buried them, and marked them. We also got the family's suicide note and tokens. We just wait until we get to Jiangnan in the future and send a letter to their family when we have the opportunity." The village chief sighed, puffed his pipe and pot, and then responded, "That's good, otherwise we wouldn't feel safe using other people's things." After saying that, he stood up and discussed with Uncle Zhao and others, and then ordered everyone to unload everything. Every family's food supply has bottomed out. Suddenly seeing so much food, and even fine grains, I was so happy that I went crazy. Men, women, old and young couldn't help but move forward, but everyone knew the rules and no one reached out carelessly. The village chief counted the numbers himself and was very happy, so he said, "In the past, when we all ate together, the fourth child's house kept a lot of food we couldn't eat in vain, so let's give back a bag this time. This bag is only for patching the road. The sorghum you borrowed before will still have to be returned in the future." The villagers nodded and responded, "Okay, listen to the village chief." Originally, Aunt Lee's family brought the most food. Without everyone eating and drinking, it wouldn't be finished so quickly. Mrs. Lee was happy that everyone knew how to be grateful, so she didn't ask for japonica rice and only brought a bag of millet. First of all, Ji-Yin likes to drink millet porridge, which nourishes the stomach and nourishes the body. Secondly, the japonica rice is the least among the grains brought back. If it is not good at home, he will carry a whole bag back. The village chief continued the distribution. "This time I went to rescue the leftover dog. Dr. Zhang and sister-in-law Qian were very helpful. The two families also received a bag of grain each." Everyone also nodded. Dr. Zhang took the medicine and sister-in-law Qian administered the medicine, which wiped out most of the bandits at once. This was definitely the key to the successful suppression of the bandits. The father and son of Lu Baiatu and Lao Sige also killed 3 bandit leaders. They worked hard for everyone, so the two families received an extra bag of food. The remaining food will be shared with them this time. Those who go will be divided into 20 kilograms each first, and then divided equally according to their heads. The adults will take the whole number, and the children will take half. If everyone thinks it's okay, I will divide the money." As the village chief spoke, he poured out the jar of silver. The white silver thorn stung everyone's eyes, and their thoughts naturally changed. Even if there was a slight objection to sharing the grain just now, it was no longer a concern at this time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 129. Chapter 129. There is happiness only when there is contrast. Uncle Village Chief, you divide it up, we are listening. Yes, food is no problem, we all agree. The villagers spoke one after another, urging the village chief, with burning eyes that seemed to melt silver. The village chief counted and found that there were a total of 48 silver ingots in the jar, 5 taels each. He said, "It's still Lao Si and Lu Baiatu, as well as sister-in-law Qian, Dr. Zhang." As soon as the meal started, Mrs. Kui spoke up, "Village chief, we have already distributed enough food, so we don't need any more money. Let's all share it, without counting sister-in-law Qian's share." Sister-in-law Qian also nodded, "I just went in and administered some medicine, but I didn't do much." Divine Dr. Zhang waved his hand in the same way, "Yes, I don't need any money anymore, as long as I have food. I just gave out a bottle of medicine, and no one came, so why should I share the money?" Li Laosi looked at his mother, saw her nodding, and then turned to Mrs. Lu, who also nodded quickly. The two families reached a tacit understanding, and Li Laosi said, "Uncle Village Chief, let's divide the money equally. As long as one of them goes to suppress the bandits this time, even if they contribute, they will take the risk. There are also a few brothers who stay at home, it's not a big deal, after all, they didn't follow him in order to protect their family." Several people said this, especially Li Laosi, who even took Xinjiang into consideration, which made everyone feel grateful and happy, but they were embarrassed to take advantage. "Uncle Village Chief, we followed and it was a hard walk back and forth. We killed 4 or 5 of the 30 bandits, and the rest were all led by fourth brother and Lu Biao. They deserve more money. Yes, we were scared to death at the time. We got together and hacked a few of them to death. If it hadn't been for fourth brother, Lu Biatu, and Ji Lu Yang, we would have lost a few of our lives." Those who stayed at home also said, "We didn't go. We stayed at home. How can we divide the money? We can't take it." Uncle Wu kept waving his hands, "Everyone went there to save our children. I don't want to pay to thank you. How can I share the money? I don't want it." The village chief and Uncle Zhao were so happy that the people in the village were so united and so sensible. Seeing the pushing and pushing from both sides, the village chief said, "I've made the decision. Let's divide it evenly. There are 21 people going to suppress the bandits, and each person has 2 silver coins. So the remaining few silver coins, and the few left at home, are enough for each person. That's it." As he spoke, he began to divide the silver. Finally, everyone pinched the heavy silver and they were all happy. Even sister-in-law Qiang raised her eyebrows and gave the silver crown to Mrs. Kui. Of course there was the bag of ransom money. The women from each family hurried forward to put what they had put in it and took it back as it was. The village chief called Tao Hongying, "Hongying, you have been taking care of Mrs. Kui and Mr. Wen. Look at this pile of things. If there is anything missing from the small cave, pick it out first. The rest, you women just look at the points. Okay, uncle, you guys have a rest, we're left to take care of things." Tao Hongying quickly gathered the women from each family, and first picked out a kettle and tea set, a set of pots and pans, a jar of vegetable oil, some salt, etc. She also ordered 2 sets of bedding. The women from each family looked on with smiles, and after she finished picking, they quickly divided up the rest. The village chief shouted to everyone, "Go back and have a rest. Leave the boys at home, don't take the money for nothing, and do a good job tonight. Let the 4th child have a good sleep, and we will study it carefully tomorrow, and then we will take turns on duty." "I know, Uncle Village Chief," everyone responded with a roar, carrying their own food and things, and climbed back into the cave. The Li family harvested too much this time. Not only did they get 20 taels of silver, they carried back nearly 4 bags of grain. 1 bag of millet was subsidized by everyone, and 1 bag of sorghum rice was obtained by the 4th brother and Ji Yi, who fought hard for it. The remaining bag of sorghum noodles and half a bag of japonica rice are the food for more than 10 people in the family. The last half bag of fine flour is for everyone to supplement the good news. After all, every little kid has been eating xiaozao with the good news all the way. They ate the eggs that the Li family picked up and drank the porridge soup and rice porridge. Old Mrs. Li was so happy that she put all the silver and copper coins back, and then kissed her granddaughter on the cheek. "Fu Niu, have you seen it? You should be kind-hearted. Good people will definitely be rewarded. Right." Ji Yin hugged Grandma, kissed her on the face, and shouted coquettishly, "Grandma, eat dumplings." These past few days, every meal has been sorghum rice porridge mixed with dried vegetables. It is so thin that people can be seen, and Ji Yin's belly is flat. To be honest, her father had brought food back. If he was empty-handed, she would have to think of a solution even if she tried her best to act like a monster. The old lady was happy, and after a moment of hesitation she said, let your mother make some dumpling soup tonight. When your third brother comes back tomorrow, we can eat dumplings. Before the good news could be spoken, Jian, who was eavesdropping on the side, was already crazy with joy, shouting, "Eat dumplings, eat dumplings." Old Mrs. Lee quickly picked up the pipe and pot and knocked on it. "What are you shouting for? Your father is sleeping." Jian and Jiaxi immediately shrunk their necks, quickly climbed down the cave, and went to show off to other friends. Every family has enough food to share, and they all want to have some fun. Hearing that the Lee family was going to make dumplings tomorrow, they all planned to get up. "Don't worry about how many, just pack a few and let the kids have fun together." In the small cave, Mrs. Kui took the blood letter written by the female family members of the Guo family and sighed softly. "Mrs. Guo and I were familiar with each other when we were in women's school. Later, we both got married and gradually drifted away from each other. We didn't move around anymore. I don't want to hear the news of her death here now, but it is still so tragic." Sister-in-law Qian quickly advised, "Madam, the Guo family has buried her properly and left a mark. It will be easy to recover the bones in the future. As long as we send a token to the Guo family, you will have fulfilled the friendship between our classmates." Mrs. Kui nodded. Well, this world is so difficult, and blessings and misfortunes are really unpredictable. I thought I was already very miserable, but now I have settled here, saved my life, and lived a stable life. I didn't expect the Guo family to be even more pitiful. It's really. Mr. Wen on the side also responded, "We are also lucky, otherwise we would have frozen to death in the mountains and forests by now. However, this blood letter cannot be given to the Guo family, as the villagers said. For Mrs. Guo and others we must keep the story secret, but people's hearts are unpredictable, so we still keep this blood book as a precaution." Is this to prevent the Guo family from suspecting the villagers? Mrs. Kui and sister-in-law Qian both felt that it was not the case, but they did not object. On the second day, after the sun came up, another bonfire was lit in the mountain stream. The village chief and Uncle Zhao gathered all the young men in the village and began to discuss important matters. "We lost the dog this time and suffered a big loss. We have to keep it in mind. We can't just rely on the heavy snowfall to think that everything is safe. I don't want to say whether there are other bandits in the forest. I just want to say that after the spring, we will still have a lot of trouble. I have to continue walking through the mountains. If I continue to be lazy, I will become too lazy and I may not even be able to climb the mountain." The village chief held the pipe and pot, circling the ground with his hands behind his back, and spoke earnestly. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 130. Chapter 130 Unexpected Harvest. Every day from now on, when the sun is bright, we have to come down and move around. No matter if it's practicing swinging a sword or archery, or even waving a stick randomly a few times, we can't be idle. Also, the fourth child needs to be taught more. It's better to teach everyone how to hunt. It's better to supplement the fuel and water in the stomach and save some food. After all, we have to persist until the end of the year. We don't know what will happen outside the woods. Uncle Zhao also said, "Yes, from now on, someone must be on duty during the day and night. It is best to build a shed on the hill above the cave to serve as a lookout. There must also be someone guarding the entrance of the forest opposite the mountain stream. Everyone takes turns, don't be idle." Li Laozi and everyone else nodded. With the direction, it would not be difficult to arrange it. There are 33 young men in the village, including Wen Hai, who work 3 shifts a day, that is, 4 hours on duty, and the remaining 8 hours sleeping or hunting training. The young men also had errands to clear snow and cut firewood. The women take care of the elderly and children and perform their respective duties. One group of people was left on duty, and the other 2 groups divided the work. One group went to build a shack on the top of the mountain to serve as a sentry post, and the other group went into the forest to hunt. As a result, a group of people who went into the woods to hunt did not bring their prey. Instead, they brought back Lu Biatu and Lu Yangji when the sun set. These three people carried 3 large bags of things, and their faces turned pale from exhaustion. Everyone was surprised, more curious, not knowing what they brought back. Ji rushed to the cave of his house and shouted loudly, "Brother, come down quickly and see what good things I have brought you." Jiaran was riding his sister on his neck and walking around in the cave. It was rare that he didn't practice calligraphy. Hearing the shouting, the brother and sister opened the curtain and looked outside. They were both very happy. Jiaran quickly pulled the bamboo pole on his back, carried his sister on his back, and then got off the vine ladder. Ji gave his sister a big kiss, took his eldest brother and ran to the hay shed. In the hay shed, Lu Biatu had already opened 3 packages. Mr. Wen asked with surprise, "Where did you find so many books?" Jiaran's eyes were also shining, and he rushed directly to the pile of books, touching them left and flipping through them, almost going crazy with joy. Scholars are very valuable, not just to eat, drink and study in the academy. The most expensive things are pen, ink, paper, inkstones, and books. An enlightenment book costs 1 tael of silver. There is such a big pile in front of us, with more than 300 books. If you want to buy it, you will have to pay 700 to 800 taels of silver. Lu Biatu smiled and said, "We stayed near the bandits' yard. There was no point guarding it in vain, so we walked around. We were going to go to Guan Road to take a look, but we unexpectedly came across several boxes on the way. These books must have been robbed by the bandits from the Guo family. They were not money and were not as good as food, so they were thrown away." Mr. Wen nodded and pointed to the seal behind a book. "This is indeed Mr. Guo's private seal." He thought for a while and said, "Let Jiaran learn from this first. When you leave, take it with you if you can. If you can't take it with you, hide it and let the Guo family pick it up later." Jiaran nodded fiercely and was so happy that he wanted to lie down on the pile of books. These are rare good books, otherwise the Guo family would have to carry them with them when they couldn't escape. Without this opportunity, he, a farm boy, might never have the chance to read these books in his lifetime. Everyone laughed when they saw him like a mouse falling into a rice vat. In the end, these books were sent to the Li family's cave because they could not fit in the small cave. Mr. Wen took Jiaran to tidy up for a long time, and Jiyan also joined in the fun, wanting to see how the cultural crystallization of this time and space is the same or different from the previous life. Jiaran was afraid that his sister would be naughty and tear it apart, but when he saw that she was carefully looking through it and looking very serious, he didn't stop him. As a result, less than half an hour later, Mr. Wen pointed behind him and suddenly laughed. He quickly looked back and saw his sister lying on the pile of books, almost snoring in her sleep. When Jiyan woke up, it was already getting late. Tao Hongying was really making noodles, and Zhao Yuru was chopping wild boar meat and preparing to make dumplings. Mrs. Li sat by the bed, carefully pouring duck eggs in the jar. When her granddaughter woke up, she held her in her arms and smiled. "Little lazy pig, are you awake? You just fell asleep on the pile of books, and your saliva almost soaked the books." Jiyan blushed, hugged her grandma's neck and twisted her around like a fat insect, which made Mrs. Li laugh non-stop. Okay, I know you are ashamed, so grandma won't say anything anymore." Mrs. Li continued to count her duck eggs, and there were still 7 or 8 lonely eggs left in the jar. Jiyan looked around, pulled off grandma's sleeve, and pointed pitifully at the jar. Mrs. Li understood and pursed her lips hesitantly. Looking back, she saw that there were only 2 busy daughters-in-law in the cave. Jiaran and Mr. Wen moved some books to the small cave. Jiaxi and Jian ran out to play. The second, third, and fourth children were all down there. She was so cruel that she leaned into her granddaughter's ear and said, "Just take out 20, not too many." Jian nodded fiercely, and with a wave of his hand, 20 cleanly washed duck eggs appeared in the jar. Mrs. Li quickly closed the lid and placed it in the innermost corner, blocking it with a grain bag. Just when she was about to breathe a sigh of relief, her granddaughter stuffed a peeled hard-boiled egg into her mouth. Looking at her granddaughter's little mouth, it was also bulging. She could only glare at her granddaughter, then hugged her, eating secretly and thinking about it. The duck eggs are pickled and 4 are to be boiled for the little cave. Jiaran is studying with Mr. Wen, so he must show off. Dr. Zhang, the village chief, Uncle Zhao and other elderly people cannot be left behind. It is always a good thing to respect teachers and elders. This way, the things my granddaughter took out were not wasted in vain, so it shouldn't ruin her happiness. Jian didn't know that her grandma was so entangled. She ate an egg and felt relieved, so she ran to the stove and squatted beside her to make dumplings. These are dumplings, she hasn't eaten them in almost 2 years. Just in time, Li Laozi climbed up from below, entered the house and hugged his daughter when he saw her. "Daughter, do you think your father has brought you something good?" Jian was thinking about eating when she suddenly saw her father taking out 2 snow-white rabbits from his arms. She subconsciously asked, "Eat them roasted? Or stewed?" There was silence in the cave for a moment, and then laughter rumbled. "Haha, our Fu Niu is hungry. How come this girl wants to eat everything she sees?" Tao Hongying was laughing so hard that she couldn't hold the basin, and Zhao Yuru also wiped the corners of her eyes. Li Laozi scratched the back of his head in confusion. "My dear daughter, this rabbit is too small to fit between your teeth. Dad brought it back for you to play with." Jian was so embarrassed that she quickly gave her father a smile and said, "Thank you, Dad." Li Laozi blinked twice, feeling that his daughter didn't like it. The good news made her want to cry without tears. The small space courtyard was overrun with rabbits, and there were as many as 80 if not 100. She was exhausted from feeding the rabbits every night. Just when she was thinking about how to reduce the burden on the space, her father got her 2 more. Someone tell her how to show happiness. End of this chapter.